Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. And always exciting guests and such great talk. You can go to my website, toldtutor.net, for more information. Twitter, Told Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley, Instagram, Told Tutor, Pinterest, Neil Haley, and Google Plus, Neil Haley. And I had a good conversation with somebody last night, and they said, well, why Total Education Network if you talk more than just education, K through 12 and college? Well, everyone has a vocation. Everyone has a job. And you have to be educated to be successful in that job. So that's where that Total Education came out a long time ago, almost 5 years ago. And I'm excited to welcome the program CEO from Buyer's Choice Home Inspections, Bill Redfern. Bill, thanks for calling, and how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks very much for inviting us on, Neil.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you, and because anytime I get a CEO on, I wish I had a pen and paper, but I'll be listening in the car to the interview, because if I can get any tidbits from a successful entrepreneur, I am going to ask millions of questions, and that's the interesting thing. So, Bill, you're kind of in the celebrity hot seat. If I have two segments with you, I can really go delve into who you are. Did you always think that you were? Did you ever think you would be a CEO growing up?
I'm not sure about a CEO, Neil, but I grew up in a family business entrepreneurial environment. So I think your future was forecast, at a young age in my case. So you knew you were going to be a business person ultimately.
Definitely, and it's something that is an exciting thing, isn't it? For sure, where you see you learn entrepreneurship, because if people all were educated in entrepreneurship, I wonder how many people would change careers very quickly if they saw how much fun it is. For sure.
That'd be an interesting statistic. I think there's only about 3% of North Americans that are actually self-employed, if I remember the stats.
Really? Wow.
But in any given city, you would have so many people that would really like to be working for themselves as opposed to punching a time clock or reporting to someone else, and that can be for any number of variety of reasons, I guess, as you can appreciate. But I'm sure it's in the 20 percentile, maybe even the 30 percentile range.
Wow, that's wild, for sure. Now, Bill, in that process of growing up in a family business, that seemed like that was what you were motivated to do, right? It sounds like it. Did it early age you're saying, I'm going to do this from seeing the family business and stuff, for sure? What was the family business anyways, Bill, growing up?
Family business was primarily construction related. I didn't have a great interest in that, even though I worked in it in my early years. But it kind of conditioned me, I guess you would say, Neil, to the culture of entrepreneurship, and I had an inkling in those early days that I certainly wanted to do something for myself, even though I had no idea what at that time.
Interesting. So growing up, and you grew up in Canada. Where in Canada?
I was in the East Coast area, Nova Scotia, Halifax, and pretty part of the country, right out on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, and obviously nicer in the summer than in the winter, especially this past year.
And definitely. I mean, the winter everywhere.
Yeah.
And it still seems winter, and it's April. And so, like you're thanking your lucky stars you're in Florida, right?
Well, I am. My children still live there, and they called yesterday and they said, "Daddy, you won't believe it. It's snowing outside right now." And I said, "Come on." I said, well, it's only for a few minutes, but it was snowing.
It was in Pittsburgh as well. So, and I remember at times I would travel to Canada as a professional wrestler, and basically it was warmer in Pittsburgh, and we get there and like, oh, we see snow flurries, and I'm like, oh. And if you go further north in Canada, you know how it is for sure. Growing up then in the school system and specific things, were you trying to really learn more about business more and more and educating yourself in specific ways?
I was, yeah. Anything business related. I used to read everything I could get my hands on, whether it was a biography of Boone Pickens or Donald Trump or whatever there was in the day. I'm 48 years old, so this goes back some time now, but I was always really fascinated with guys who were successful, and I liked reading about them, and just seeing what made them tick. And I think certainly as a young fellow, you learn a lot from that, and it certainly bode me well, I think, over the years.
Well, definitely, and educating yourself in school, and I'm sure you speak to people about the importance of school in so many ways. And then did you go on to college in Canada after high school?
My education background was different than many. I started in business at such a young age. After high school, I went on and I didn't do a degree. I did all of my college training as night courses over the next few years, you know, in business law, marketing, etc. And never really dug into finishing out a degree. I was already hands-on and had been for a number of years at that point. So my education sort of evolved, I guess, by already being in business. You know, certainly if I looked at someone young today looking for advice and my own kids in question, I would want them to stay in school. But, you know, that was just
a different path. Different path.
Yep.
So you're educating yourself for the jobs that you want to do. So what was your first kind of entrepreneurial venture out of school, out of high school?
I had an interest in real estate, Neil, right off the bat.
Okay.
And I bought my first small investment property, apartment building, in my late teens. I think I was 18
Wow.
at the time. And, you know, I remember kidding with my dad about it. And, you know, I was just a young guy. I'd been working summers and saved some money, and I was kind of dreaming about, you know, buying this Jeep so I could take the top off and go to the beach. And he kind of said, you know, why don't, you know, you got a little bit of money saved up. Why don't you go buy a piece of real estate and let that pay for the Jeep for you? You know, it was kind of one of those pieces of advice that was funny at the time, but it stuck with me. And so the early years was just that. I would buy property, even though I didn't have any money, just, you know, kind of beg, borrow, and plead with the seller to hold a second mortgage and do whatever I had to do. And, you know, one of the funny stories was one of the first buildings I ever bought, I didn't have enough money in my pocket at the time to buy a coffee, but I just signed the mortgage and closed the deal, and away we went. So, and, you know, we'd fix them up and pretty them up and improve the rents and sell them and just carry on. And that just led into a long career that was really revolving around real estate, whether it was, you know, the brokerage and, you know, real estate sales, but, you know, continually developing and buying investment properties over the years was really my start.
That's pretty neat for sure, because when you're in that process of taking that chance, and you said your dad was not in real estate, so or maybe he did have real estate properties as well. Did you have experience in understanding what to do once you owned a property?
Not really. I was too young in the years that they were around doing a little developing and building apartment buildings. But, you know, I saw a little bit of it. You know, as a kid, I was certainly on the roofs of lots of buildings with them and seeing the construction process. But in terms of operation, no, that was really a learn as you go, like it is for many.
Learn as you go. That's a key component for sure in that process. So from real estate, when did you decide to start going into some more entrepreneurial ventures? And I think I'm already spotting this story. And then why I do this story is because it kind of feeds into understanding of why you're a successful entrepreneur. You had to learn different skill sets that led you to more other opportunities and led you to certain things where you saw what were the headaches or different, what is a service out there that we need out there, that people need. And as an entrepreneur studying that, you look at that and say, oh, this seems like something I might be interested in. And that's what it sounds like in your journey, first buying real estate. What other entrepreneurial ventures after, you know, started buying properties?
Well, you're exactly correct in your statement. And as I was buying properties and selling properties, as many people do, I came to the realization that I really didn't want to be paying realtors, you know, $10,000 or $12,000 commission on each property that we sold in those days. So I get into the real estate business as well. And, you know, that led to being involved with a RE/MAX office and then having my own office ultimately. But, you know, as a realtor and broker, and then continually still adding to our investment portfolio side of the business, that's really where the idea of the home inspection originated, you know, using the first inspectors of the day that I recall back in the late 1980s in the Canadian market, you know, for my own buying properties as well as on our customers' behalf that were buying properties. That led up into the early 90s, still doing the same functions on my part, real estate and the investment properties. But in terms of the home inspection where we are today, in the early 90s, we would only see a home inspection yield, you know, 3 out of 4 times out of 10 transactions. And we looked at it, and we looked at it very closely because it was a part of the transaction that was wide open.
Yeah.
And as a realtor and a buyer,
it could cost you a lot of money down the line when you thought you bought something that was worthwhile. Then, if you would have inspected it, you would have said, "Let the buyer beware." In so many ways.
Those inspections in those days left a lot to be desired, and the poor buyers would sometimes be frightened away from a property through, less than professional commentary, from the inspectors of the day who really did not operate to a unified standard. And as the realtors and brokers of the day, we would do damage control for the next couple of days, sometimes over-inflammatory statements about a property, or the opposite of that, the less than desirable inspection that, omitted something critical. It cost, especially for first-time buyers that went into a property with no money, it would cost them an awful lot of heartache down the road. So that was the original thoughts of the home inspection franchise way back then, and having the exposure to RE/MAX, who's certainly one of the more successful franchisors, certainly in the real estate industry, but they were a great example. And that led on to the future thoughts of developing a home inspection company. And as we saw the industry gaining ground and gaining acceptance and utilization of the service, by the mid-2000s, there was really not any transactions that were happening on a regular basis that did not involve a home inspection.
Definitely, and I think that the situation is that you invested in properties and you said, why did I do that? I just got the money pit. You remember the movie The Money Pit, I'm sure, as the real estate guy. I'm sure you saw The Money Pit, where you basically bought this home and it was a complete fiasco. And people lost.
I had a few of them.
Did you ever see The Money Pit? If you've not, that would be.
I did.
Yeah, you did. Okay. So it's interesting. Sometimes you talk to these guys and they don't know the pop culture of the day. But I think, Bill, you seem like the kind of person that is interested in many different things, especially when you were in Canada. What was going on, especially in the United States, with different pop culture. I could tell because you had to understand those things for sure. And through that process, you finally decided to buy another business. I think that you, as an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, if they want to just not be a small business owner, Bill, they have to have multiple revenues. Do you agree? That if you stay small business and you have one thing, you need to have multiple revenue resources to keep it going, to look to grow, especially if you studied someone like Donald Trump.
Well, that's an interesting thought. In the terms of developing a buyer's choice, the original thoughts were back 2004, 2005 as we started developing the company and the thought and doing the research and development. And from the beginning, it wasn't intended on being a small business, pigeonholed in Eastern Canada. It was designed from the beginning to be a franchise. And that's why I put so much research into it, Neil, at the time. We wanted to be able to duplicate a high-level service because even in those days, the industry really wasn't regulated to any extent. So, being a little bit old school, we wanted to offer a standard of customer service care that really wasn't happening and standardize that in a unified way. And we thought we could do that across North America fairly well. And we launched the program for franchising a buyer's choice in 2007 in the Canadian market. And the consumer acceptance and uptake of the service and just who the brand was and how we looked, how we acted, how it felt when they dealt with us was very favorable to the point that our franchise program, we were the largest in our industry.
Oh, wow.
A day
Okay.
less than 2 years into our franchise program.
Fantastic. So definitely, Bill, when we get back, I want to talk about that and also partnering with Autism Speaks Canada because that's a big thing for me. I'm an educational advocate, work with families with autism all over the world, and definitely want to, for our listeners out there and viewers to understand that. So when we get back, more Total Education with Neil, the Neil Haley Show on the Total Education Network, and we'll be back in just a moment. back to the Neil Haley Show. Again, go to my website, tolltutor.net for more information. Twitter, Toll Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley, Instagram, Toll Tutor, Pinterest, Neil Haley, and Google+. And I'm with Bill Redfern, CEO of Buyer's Choice Home Inspections. And so what you're telling me is, Bill, you had that business of home inspections. You saw specifically how there's a need all over the world for this. So then you got into the franchising route, saying, you know, I could be this business in my area in Canada and have great success, but I want other people to see the business model I created and be able to do it for themselves as well, right?
That's exactly it, Neil, and it's very empowering as a person and as a franchisor to see people benefit from using your idea and doing well with it. You know, we've got so many examples of success, you know, across the company and across North America now. It's really quite heartening for us.
Well, definitely, and that process for people out there that understand the franchising, if you have a brand name, and Buyer's Choice is becoming that brand name for home inspections because you differentiate yourselves from the competition. You knew that you can grow to a certain level, but you wanted other people in areas that you could visit and help and mentor, but not be hands-on all the time. So that's where this franchising idea came from, and saying now you can take what I've done and researched and shown as a proven business model and give other entrepreneurs that opportunity to do this. Plain and simple.
You're exactly right. You know, franchising, Neil, is one of the few businesses where you can leverage that time and skill set where you have other entrepreneurs actually owning their own franchise, their own business. I don't think a person could do that by just growing and expanding into branch offices with employees. You know, franchising is a unique vehicle, really, to do that.
Let me give you this example, and this is something where I might consider at one point my business, Total Tutor, being a franchise, or at least how I've created this business model individually, is that I couldn't expand to a point of employees all over the place because it's a service. A service-oriented field is so difficult to manage in a exorbitant way because you expect your home inspectors to provide the greatest service possible to their customers, not be ones that undercut people or overlook specific important things in that home inspection, but provide quality service. So by having and working with franchisees all over the country, that's a much better way of management and providing that product and service in a way that if you would decide just to open up offices all over the country, would they have your mission and vision, that your expertise that you have, Bill? No, not at all.
We certainly think it works, and with people having skin in the game, having invested in their own business and their own livelihood depending on it, much greater likelihood that the customer is going to feel, the franchisee conveying the same level of service that we hope they do. And, you know, it's interesting that I get a lot of calls throughout the year from other business people who are considering franchising their idea or their business model. And that's one of their primary concerns, Neil, is, you know, what happens with the guy that's 1,500 miles away? Is he going to do it the way I want it done? And you know, are we powerless, or how do we manage that? So it's an interesting question.
So I think that model sounds better in so many aspects because then your brand name is still there. You're not going to have as much competition because you're creating all these great franchisee owners all over the country for your company, and it's just fantastic to watch the growth compared to having to go and make a trip out to Omaha for one little mistake. When it's your stuff and it's everything you, and you're not working with that franchisee to make sure that they're as talented as you are in that business, it becomes such a nitpicking thing that it costs money for you and time in different situations. That's why I guess you learned from the delegation of Donald Trump in so many ways from reading those CEOs when you were very young, for sure. Now, Bill, I guess at the end we're going to talk about how people can find information about the franchisee, but really this one of the big segments, I'm considering you like a celebrity, Bill, in so many ways, a celebrity of entrepreneurship for sure. Now tell us why you partner with Autism Speaks Canada.
Well, autism is near and dear to my heart. I have 3 children, 10-year-old twin girls and an 8-year-old boy, and one of my daughters and my son are both on the autism spectrum.
Oh, my.
And, having lived it and breathed it on a daily basis as a parent, it was always near and dear to my heart. And as a company, you know, we're contacted by any number of charities, over the course of the year, both with us at home office and all of our franchises. So without really prompting, it was interesting. The franchises kind of came to a conclusion that we should all, support one charity as a group, and very quickly they pointed to Autism Speaks, and of course I was happy to support that. And Autism Speaks Canada is a fantastic organization. We haven't had a lot of dealing with their U.S. arm as of yet, but we're certainly going to initiate that this year. And over a short period of time, we forged a relationship, and what that ultimately shook out to look like was that all of our Canadian franchise partners, Neil, agreed to donate a portion of their proceeds from each service provided, to a consumer, and we would match that dollar for dollar, and that's really what we established, and it's just a fantastic program. We hope, even with a little bit of money raised, we hope that helps, but we get bigger and broader than that. We hope a little bit of the awareness helps, and maybe helps drive a little more fundraising to, the Autism Speaks programs. It's a much needed program. I know as a parent, dealing with it firsthand, as I'm sure you're aware, it's very difficult for people to have a one-stop shopping, a place to go to find the resources, whether they're looking for ABA therapists or speech therapists or whatever it may be. And fortunately, I've found through personal experience over the years that Autism Speaks has been a wonderful resource.
Right.
So when it came time to look at supporting, someone as a charity, it was a very easy decision, and we're very happy that we've got a lot of fantastic franchise partners out there with big hearts and a conscience who, are as dedicated to the cause as we are here at home office.
Now, Bill, I didn't know that it was that close to home for you, with having you said 2 children with autism.
Yes,
sure.
Yes.
And your struggle every day, and I know this as an education expert and autism consultant, and do so much work as an advocate in the schools. The daily grind that you go through as a family, and so this is something where being able to partner, especially in your area in Canada, with this group, and seeing how you can help these families that might not have the resources that you have in your success as an entrepreneur, because there's so much needed for our listeners out there. The amount of things that, in our viewers, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where this is our flagship station for TV, where we're filming right now, has tremendous free resources in Allegheny County. That's not available in, let's say, Florida, correct? For services for things like having a mobile therapist, or a therapist coming in all the time to the home, working with them, therapeutic support staff, having that break that's needed, and also educating the family. That's not available in other places in the United States, is it? Or in Canada?
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful to hear that Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh in particular has some services there available. Most places that isn't the norm, unfortunately, and I've heard of people actually picking up and moving their whole family and their livelihood and household just to go to somewhere where there is better resources in the area. And you're correct in your comment. I was fortunate. I was doing well enough economically that we're able to provide a lot of therapy with the kids at an early age. Both at time of diagnosis and pre-diagnosis. To the point where they were coming along pretty well. But yes, it's a real challenge for people. You don't really know what the future outlook is for your child, whether they're going to ultimately gain independence, whether they'll always live with you at home. So it's a sort of a big picture, but the day-to-day scenario of people with autistic kids, whether they're in a normal school, whether they have a teacher's aide with them all day, like my children do. There's a lot of hands-on management involved, and that's why I said we were favorable with Autism Speaks. They tend to be a very good resource, and there's an awful lot of people out there, waiting for a very small pool of services. So it's nice that we can create a little bit of awareness, I guess.
Well, I'm gonna give you words of encouragement for your family, Bill. There are so many opportunities for special needs students to go on after high school to college. And more you learn about how great the United States is in their education system and providing those opportunities for them in the college realm, you definitely don't give up hope for sure for your kids.
Oh, no, we're constantly optimistic. Thank you very much for the words of encouragement.
And prayers for sure to your family, for sure. In any way I can provide that loudspeaker for you guys when you're promoting anything with Autism Speaks Canada through my Twitter, Facebook, please feel free to send me something and I can blast it out to my fans. Really,
thank you so much,
Neil. That's the type of thing for sure. So, Bill, one thing about the Franchisee things, we were running out of time. Where can we find information on you, Bill? And go ahead and people can inquire about being a franchisee owner and also help learn how they want to grab a buyer's choice program, home inspection in the area, especially in the Canadian area, because we are on radio in Canada, so that they can go ahead and donate and stuff to Autism Speaks and also and frequent buyer's choice. Where's the best place to go?
Thank you, Neil. The easiest thing is that someone looks at our website, which for A Buyer's Choice Home Inspections is abuyerschoice.com. We have territories remaining, franchise territories in the Canadian market. We're expanding in the U.S. market. There's still all kinds of great territory available. We're expanding globally. We operate in 14 countries now, so there's master franchises available in various countries. We're already operating in New Zealand,
Fantastic.
And Latin America. Primarily, our growth in the coming years is in the U.S. market. After the recession, we're starting to build ahead of steam here. And the Canadian market still has probably one-third remaining to be sold out, really. In terms of supporting, for the donation cause, any of our services in the Canadian market, any money that's spent with any of our franchises is greatly appreciated, and of course that will have a donation attached to it, to Autism Speaks. And that will apply as well. We just launched another franchise, Neil, in the home health care sector, which is called iCare. And iCare is going to launch the same program.
Fantastic.
We just signed our first master franchise, a development agreement for the Atlantic Canada, 4 provinces in Atlantic
Awesome.
Canada.
Perfect.
All good things. So I know you're pressed on time.
Yeah, I definitely am. So great talking to you, Bill. I want to have you back on again, especially to talk whenever you have any new projects to promote with Autism Speaks. Let me know and reach out to me. And thanks again for calling, Bill.
Thanks so much, Neil. Anytime at all.
Take care. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. That was the Neil Haley Show. Fantastic show. Website toldtutor.net. Have a great week. Watch next week. Good day, everyone.